Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Most UFOs, as many as 80% according to our experts, can be dismissed as military aircraft, misidentified by civilian eyes. But sightings over populated areas can't be written off in this way. The Air Force says that they don't fly highly experimental craft over populated areas. So now, a rash of sightings between Spokane, Washington and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho have people wondering, just what are they?
Over there, at the top of those trees over there was a bright light shining.
And it was like they were putting on a laser show. They turn up on their side and you see like laser beams of light.
I called the Post Falls Police Department, and they came out, and this gentleman was a sergeant. He asked us what we thought we were looking at. At this point, I handed him my binoculars, and I said, look for yourself. He immediately reported the same thing that we were seeing.
Beginning on March 2nd, 1994, people in the small town of Post Falls, Idaho started seeing UFOs.
Post Falls Police.
Emergency Communications Officer Chris Euler took the first UFO calls.
Our boat was on graveyard shift, and we had reports that people were seeing twinkling lights. They were kind of nervous and said there's something floating in the sky. Well, the first thing we did was run outside and look and see if there really was something in the sky, and there was a white light, and there were colored lights kind of rotating around it. There was red, green, blue, purple, and a gold colored light, and they were flashing systematically.
That night, the police switchboard received several calls of concern. Post Falls wanted answers, but the authorities were stumped. They began referring many of the callers to Jerry Rowles.
I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel of the Air Force, and I am the Assistant State Director for Washington State of the Mutual UFO Network. We use scientific methodology in our field investigative procedures. We also interface with various other organizations to include astronomical societies, the Air Force, Sheriff's Department, United States Meteorological Offices, and the Federal Aviation Agency to try to rule out what the objects may not be. We've recently had an increased number of reports here in the area of Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls area, and the people have been reporting a nebulous type of lights that are observed in the night sky.
It was very shallow, like two shallow saucers placed together. The only lights on it were on the bottom. There was the big one that I keep mentioning. In the center was a recessed amber light.
And there was three of them to the west, right on the horizon. And then we saw an aircraft coming in from the east. And at that point, we happened to glance back to the west, and these three just took off, went straight up, and the lights went out. The aircraft went on by, and we discussed this. We stood and watched it for a little while, and pretty soon the lights come back down. The three of them come right back down in the same position.
This amateur videotape, exclusive to Sightings, is the only known visual record of one of the UFOs. The object's brilliance and unusual flight pattern does seem to rule out the possibility that it is a celestial body or a conventional aircraft. Sightings of bright UFOs continue to be reported in Post Falls and surrounding communities. In nearby Newman Lake, Washington, one man had a frightening encounter on a lonely stretch of road.
2 nights ago, I was driving down West Newman Lake Road a little before midnight. There's a field there. I usually stop and look at the deer. All of a sudden, a blinding white light came from directly above me. I slowed down, opened the door, looked up. All I could see was a bright, round, incredibly bright light straight above me. I looked at it for maybe 9 or 10 seconds, couldn't figure out what it was. Immediately became incredibly frightened, slammed my door, and I drove away as fast as I could. As soon as I went to leave, the light was gone. It vanished. As I was driving away, I was probably as scared as I've ever been in my life. I headed straight to a house not too far away down the road, a friend's house.
I could tell he was very serious because he was so scared. He was just, I've never seen him shake. He actually was just shaking. And very pale, no color to him.
I was in the military and I've been on bases. This light was not something I've ever seen on any aircraft. It would have to be something incredibly large. I can't imagine, the light would have to be 50 yards across to do this. It was huge, huge.
Later that night, local police put Dean in contact with Jerry Rowles. Rawls immediately called each of his considerable military and civilian contacts about the event.
And I have pretty well ruled out any type of encounter with an aircraft. Based on the interface that I had with the Air Force, I can only say what the object was not.
According to Rawls, it was not a commercial airliner or conventional military aircraft. But many residents in the area think they know what Dean encountered, the same type of UFO they themselves have witnessed. The same type of UFO captured on videotape just days before.
If somebody told me the same story, I would say, yeah, sure, whatever, you know, I don't believe you. You have to be there. Ever since what happened 2 nights ago, obviously I don't stop in the same place. I feel uncomfortable in the dark, not because I think there's a monster out there waiting for me, but because there's something out there, and I didn't see what was behind the light.
A disturbing new development has just been reported by sources in Idaho. The sightings are continuing, and where UFOs have been observed, ranchers are reporting cattle mutilations. Sightings is conducting an ongoing investigation in the connection between these new sightings and the suspicious mutilations.